My topic is developing young defensemen. I think you can use this to really develop any young player. It's really just a series of building relationships so that the communication you have is honest and it's forthright, so that you can get a steeper learning curve for these guys. You can get their awareness of the game a little bit sharper, and I'll take you sort of down that path that's helped me in the last few years. How young? Heard a lot about the good young Nashville Defense Corps, and I did this in May when I was asked to do this, so these ages are probably a little bit off now. But Nashville's 6 main guys there, their average age is right in the wheelhouse of good young defensemen or good defensemen. Look down at Columbus, and even with Jack Johnson and David Savard, because we had two first-year players and one in his teens, it gets dragged down into the 23s. Seth Jones was 23. Ryan Murray, also a 23-year-old at the time. So I thought it was a very pertinent subject. I had 2 first-year players 2 years ago in St. Louis, and Edmondson and Parayko. And when we made that decision at the start of the year to go with 2 young defensemen, I said to Ken Hitchcock, you know, that means when we start the playoffs, we have 2 first-year defensemen as well. And he was comfortable with it. We ended up going to the conference finals that year, so it was a good decision on the organization's behalf, and it helped me go into this year with a much younger staff, or a much younger roster, and obviously 2 first-year guys as well. Quick bio, like they said, I played 15 years, and I had the opportunity to work with lots of great coaches. My first pro coach ever was Tom Webster. I still remember him snapping a stick over the crossbar and destroying a few water bottles behind the bench. Those days are a little bit gone by in pro hockey. Some of the other guys, Ron Wilson, Joel Quenneville, worked with lots of great coaches. The one that's not on this list would be my junior coach, Brian Kilray. And we were able to win him his first Memorial Cup in 1984. And it was a real thrill to skate around my hometown of Kitchener with the Memorial Cup over my head and know what it meant to him. He's been a mentor and probably a friend since then. And when I called him after 15 years and nobody else wanted to give me a contract, I decided to try and get into coaching and asked for his advice. And his advice, the main thing that rang true was be yourself. And this is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, the Oscar Wilde quote, be yourself, everyone else is already taken. But it is very true. And if you're not true to yourself, if you're anything but yourself, guys will see through it. And I think it's real important that we stick to what we know and what we're good at, and figure out ways for that to help you have success with your team. I was very fortunate. I started coaching in the NHL. I found out later that the $50,000 video system that they were supposed to get in Tampa Bay was the $50,000 that they paid me 18 years ago to be an assistant coach down there. And the video coach came up to me a couple months later. He says, you know, you're lucky, you're a real good guy. And I had no idea. And I said, why? He goes, well, because he says, I finally figured out where my $50,000 video system went. And so it was a great opportunity for me. I've lots of good fortune in my career, and that was certainly one of them. And I've been blessed to be in this game for 33 years at the pro level, and trying to get better every day, trying to get my team better every day, trying to help my head coach get better when I'm assistant. I've worn lots of different hats, head coach, assistant coach, associate coach, and that I've really tried to pay attention, not just through my playing, but through my coaching. And I think it's helped me relate to some of these guys in the different situations they get in. I really coach from a relationship point of view. I realized that last year when I was looking for a job after 10 years in St. Louis. Every time I talked to a team or did an interview, I started talking about relationships, and I realized really how important they were to me and how important that communication. We've heard almost every guy up here talk about the importance of communication. And when I got into this coaching after playing, I like most guys, like Glenn said, I thought it was very much X's and O's, and I was like, oh, awesome. I'm really smart X's and O's wise. It's managing people. And whether they're 6 or 7 years old, 12 or 13, or they're 35 years old staring down the gun at the end of a long playing career, they're all humans, and they're all people first, and they're athletes second. And I try and take that approach in as many things as I do. You see this a lot, and I read lots of books, and can I trust you, and do you care about me? And I went from St. Louis Conference Finals. I had a chance to work with Ralph Kruger and Paul Maurice with Team Europe at the World Cup. Unbelievable opportunity. We went much farther, obviously, than most people expected. Great learning experience for me, watching how positive guy Ralph Kruger was, and how he took a team with really no prep. We had no orientation camp. We had 11 guys show up one day, and the rest of the team 2 days later played the North Americans. I'm not sure we touched the puck for more than 5 minutes that night. Got totally embarrassed. We were totally embarrassed through the first 11, 12 minutes of the next game against North America. And after the timeout we called, or Ralph called at 4-0, things started looking up. And it was an amazing, and obviously easier to do in a short tournament like that, but the way he stayed positive was incredible. There was not one element of negativity that ever seeped in. When the tournament was over and we were saying our goodbyes, I said to Paul Maurice, how long are you going to be able to keep that positivity going in Winnipeg? And it's a little different when things start unraveling at the NHL level under the scrutiny of the media and the fans. And he held on for a while, but he obviously caved in and let loose a few times on the bench. But great example for me. Got sort of airlifted into Columbus with no training camp. And those 3 weeks are a fantastic opportunity for a new coach with a new team to build those relationships. So I kind of lost that and had to sort of make up for lost time. I go by the rule that I'm trying to start conversations and ask questions every day. I'm going to talk for 35 minutes here. I'm much more comfortable listening. And I know it makes me smarter. I know it helps me grow as a coach and as a person if I can listen and listen intently to what's being said. I try and find ways to talk every day to these guys, and especially some of the quieter players. And you know you have them on your teams. They exist at our level as well. You really have to show your intent. You really have to show you care, and it takes a long time to build those levels of trust up before they start talking. I have to give my wife a little credit here. I came home one day in St. Louis. It was one of those days, high anxiety, lots of video. She was all excited because a player on the team had a baby. And I get home, and she could care less about my job. Hey, was it a boy or a girl? I said, I don't know. Never did get to talk to him. She goes, well, that's pretty awful. I said, you should really know your players better than that. That really resonated with me. I said, yeah, you're right. She said, why don't you take them out as a pair, just as a defense pair? Have dinner with them. You buy and get into an environment where you can talk about anything. And what I found, the first guys I did were Pietrangelo and Bouwmeester. Two guys. I had coached Petro 5 years at this point. In the next 2 hours when we went out for dinner, I learned more and talked about more diverse topics than I would ever get to in a conversation, because you're always moving on to the next guy in a locker room. There's always one more guy you want to talk to, one more guy you want to touch, and so you never get into that depth. We talked about things within his family that I never knew. And I called my wife right away. I said, hey, you're really onto something. I don't like giving you too much credit too often, but I'm going to keep doing this. And I saw some of the responses this year. Jack Johnson, the next day at the rink, he was, Coach, that was awesome yesterday. That was so great. He said, I don't think I've ever talked to a coach on that personal level before. I don't think I've ever just sat there and talked. And I've got a little Scottish in me, so the only bad part it is I have to pay. And I made the mistake. We went to a real nice restaurant this year, took Jones and Werenski out, and I won't make that mistake again. I know my price point. I know what I like to pay, but it is invaluable. And if you have an opportunity, find ways to create conversations and find ways to get to know these guys so that they feel comfortable enough talking to you at the same sort of level. Obviously builds the trust, and I've always tried to operate, treat them like you wanted to be treated yourself, and never forget what it's like to be a player, the anxieties that go into it. There's lots of great days as a player. There's lots of uncertainty as well. There's lots of days, especially when you're bouncing around and maybe not the blue chip guys at the NHL level. Every other guy has got lots of stuff going on, and so it's helped me. How I teach, and I boil the game down into awareness and execution. There's two types of mistakes for me. There's two types of good plays on the flip side. And if I wrote a book on this game, this would be the title of it. And over the years, I've boiled it down. How do I get to teach this guy the best way? How do I figure out what the main priority, what's the first thing that I should be addressing with this player, and what should I be addressing with the defense core as a whole? This is how I get there. And I go from the point of view of, to me, if I boil the game of hockey down, or maybe most sports, is we're always trying to create the next advantage. One-on-one situation, it's a breakout. It's a neutral zone transition. You're creating offense on the power play. How are you creating the next advantage? Whether it's through puck execution, body position, stick position, communication. There's so many elements that go in, and that's why I'm trying to find out. The biggest thing for this, the biggest component for me, the awareness side, is your situational reads. And this is mainly what I'm trying to improve, especially with our young defensemen, and this would go for young forwards as well, and obviously young goalies. How good is your info? I've had defensemen where I've had to talk to them every day, keep your head up, get your eyes up, get your eyes up. I changed it from head up to eyes up because of TJ Oshie. He would skate around pretending his head was down, but his eyes were up, and he would reverse shoulder guys. Changed it to eyes up. And it's something that needs to get drummed into certain guys' heads. I'm not going to use any names up here, but certain players might take 10 games, might take 10 days, might take 10 months. You never know, but how good their information is really allows them to make the read. And then the context of the game, and the guys that are really good, they do this naturally. They know the score, they know the clock. They know who they're out there with and against. They know how long they've been on the ice. And as all those things vary through the shifts, they change what was maybe a good situational read 5 minutes into a nothing game, down 3-1 with 5 minutes left, or up 3-1 with 5 minutes left, would totally change the appropriateness of that situation. One of the issues with young players is the database, is they just don't have the games under their belt to have the wisdom and the experience of being in those situations enough to pull out the right solution. And on the flip side of this, that's what we're looking for. So we're looking, we're reading the play, we're selecting that play, we're finding a solution. And to me, that's what the game is. It's a series of complex problems that you're continually trying to find a solution to create the next advantage. It's kind of a little bit like a math problem, but I'm not that good at math. We ask our guys to be a step ahead mentally all the time. And one of the hardest challenges for young defense is to get there. And I'm going to show you some video later on Zach Werenski, who we already mentioned was a finalist for Rookie of the Year. He makes the real hard parts of playing defense, or some of them, incredibly easy looking. And it's quite an honor, I guess, to be behind the bench. I take no credit for him, by the way. This guy came as an almost finished product, and I think one of the main things that you can take away from today and from certainly what I'm saying is that these guys are coming in with skill sets and skill packages that are off the charts from 10, 20 years ago. And that's a credit to everybody out here that coaches at a minor hockey league level, the time that goes in, the effort. The guys that are coming and showing up on our doorstep, their skill packages are unreal. What they don't have is the mental abilities to plug those skill sets into the right situation at the right time to consistently have success. And that's what I really try and do, try and help them out. The last two things here, that play selection and then the execution, is really the crux of the issue. How do we get our awareness better? Video is a great tool, and we all have access to it, possibly overused at times, but we all have to find our comfort level. And different situations sort of allow or dictate a certain duration, a certain number of good or bad clips. Are you lumping all the good ones together and all the bad ones together? Are you alternating? Are you showing them in the timeline of the game, maybe to show the point that the game started out well and kind of didn't end quite the way you would like? There's lots of ways to use video. I overused it. I admit it now. I had Eric Johnson in St. Louis, first overall pick. I thought my job was to go over every shift with him and show him how smart I was, and then let him enjoy my intelligence and try and pick some of it up. I now know that I know no more than anybody in this room about the game. What I do know is how to get my point across and get a player better, hopefully sooner than later. And how I do that now is less video. I know I showed Werenski less than 5%, and instead of sitting down with clips with him, I would give him times on a sheet, knowing full well he was going to watch his own clips. Here's 3 clips, Zach, or 4 clips, and just give him the times of them. I wouldn't even tell him what the topic was. And so for him to come back then, there'd be lots of clips that were 10 or 15 seconds long. That might have been a D-zone coverage to a D-zone exit to a rush. And he wouldn't really know what my focus was. I like it because it gets him thinking, it plugs him into the game, and it makes him find a solution. And a lot of times he'll come and say, which one of those elements did you want me to look at? And I've really pared back how I use it in individual situations, and I've tried to find ways like that to be a little bit more creative and allow the players to have a little bit more growth and a little bit of education along the way. The one time that I really like video, and it's really a means to an end, is a thing I call Defense University. And this started when I was coaching American League. Lots of weekend games, lots of weekdays with practices, lots of 4 days in a row with nothing but practice. And to break it up a little bit, we started showing highlights and or lowlights from the weekend games. Usually very focused, 1 or 2 topics. Started out again, like my coaching, very X's and O's based. Had to show the players how smart I was. Had to get them to buy into what I was doing or what I wanted to do on the ice. I continue to do this, and it has really morphed into an interactive experience where we will show 10 or 12 clips, but by the second or third clip, there'll be a comment or a question, and our meeting might go down a totally different path. And it's more to give these guys a voice. And again, in the smaller groups where a first-year quiet player will never say a word in the main group of the whole team, we'll talk in these. And he's in a more comfortable environment. It's a non-threatening environment. We're not really pounding things into their head. I'm asking as many questions, and when the meeting goes well, I'll be listening more than I'm talking. I had a head coach come in St. Louis. I told him that I would like to do this. He says, well, I'd like to come in the first meeting. I said, well, okay, I don't know if it's a good idea. He comes in, the head coach is sitting there, totally different dynamic. I show the video. Nobody says a word. Nobody asks a question. Nobody has a comment. We leave. 4 minutes later, these things can go 20, 25 minutes when we get going. We walk out and the head coach goes, oh, that was great. I said, no, it wasn't. I said, that was the worst one I've ever had. The whole point of this is to get them to interact, to create a little more ownership for them, to get a little bit more of a buy-in because they feel like they have some impact. I said, "You're not allowed in anymore," and he was okay with that. And we went back to him, and we've solved problems. We had an internal issue on a team that we had no idea about. The only reason we found out about it is because of these meetings that we had. Just another way to get communication and through to the players so that you get it both ways. The other way I really like to communicate with my guys now, and it's been a little bit more a byproduct of working with John Tortorella this year, doesn't use a lot of video. So I felt like any video I showed became onerous in a hurry. So started to do a lot more of on-ice walkthroughs. So we have the luxury of skating around a little bit before our ice time starts. I know that's not the case for everybody in here. But it gave me a great opportunity to take a guy, knowing full well the 2 or 3 things I wanted to talk about. So we'd go to that particular area on the ice, and we would talk about, hey, you remember about 12 minutes into the first period, D-zone clip, and you lose body position, and whatever it was, you can be on that area of the ice. So you're fully immersed. They're in a non-threatening environment again, plus they're thinking about the previous game. And most of the guys at this point have watched their shifts already. They've already played it, and then they've watched it again, and hopefully rehearsed a few things that they would have done a little bit better. Now we're going over it again, actually on the ice. And so you get a little bit of teaching, but the other byproduct that we really found helped out was we had sharper players to start practice. And what we're trying to fit practice time into our 82-game schedule with all the travel and everything else that goes with it, 45 minutes is a long practice for us. They're intense, and we get a lot done, and we don't go to the board very often. But when you're trying to get a lot out of 45 minutes, the more efficient you can be, and maybe the more you can use the 7 or 8 minutes before it to get a lot of the house cleaning out, and then move on and focus on what we want to execute that day. So real important way that I've found to get that awareness up. Execution tools, and the real important thing for me here is the focus on the process and that daily regimen, and everybody's talked about it. We're trying to leave the rink every day a little bit better than when we got there. And you compound all those little improvements, and before you know it, you've made huge improvements. Try and work on or focus on one element with each player and the D as a whole each day. And try not to get too far ahead. Some elements have to be basically perfected before you can move on to the next one anyway. There's no reason to cloud their brains with 4 or 5 things that are conflicting sometimes in what they're working on. So we really try and focus. We'll use a lot of defense and forward splits. We'll use power play penalty kill splits. In our D splits, we really try and be game focused and drills that it doesn't take much imagination for the players to fit it right into a game situation. It's usually pertaining to something that hasn't gone so good for us lately, and I realize that's shutting the barn door after the horse has already left, but unfortunately that's what a lot of we're doing in coaching. It's hard to predict what is the next element of your game that's going to go south. Our job is to redirect it and get it good in a hurry. We try and catch them doing things right. Had the opportunity to work with Andy Murray. This was one of the great things I took away from those years. He was had a real emphasis in his coaching on catching guys doing things right, positive reinforcement instead of on the negative side. In games, I write mine for gold on my game card every day. I have a tough time. I wish I was more positive than I am to enter a game. I do have the expectation that my players are going to be great every night. So when they're not great, it's usually a surprise for me. But I try and mine for gold. I try and use that positive reinforcement on the bench as well. If there's a good play, I will talk to the guys on the bench about it. Oh, that's a great read. What a great read by Jonesy there. What a great read to step up and close off. And now I've got 4 sets of ears that are listening, and they've just watched the same play. Now when Jonesy comes off the ice, if I'm real sharp, I tell him as well. And if I forget, I'll try and touch him between periods, either right when we get in or before. Hey, I forgot to mention when you came to the bench, but that was a fantastic gap. I told the guys on the bench, and I meant to tell you, but I forgot. I'm trying to coach them up. Glenn Gulletson talked about that. When I'm watching a play and something doesn't sit right with me, after the head coach has usually reamed him out for a minute, and I pick him back up and build him back up, I'll ask them, what did you see out there? And if you want to know what type of error it was, it's a great question. Because when it's a read error, they're going to tell you right away. I had a player come from Toronto in a trade 2 games in. It's a 3-on-2. He plays it like a 3-on-3. Head coach comes down, reams him out. Horrible play. Yes, it was a horrible play. I asked him, what did you see out there? He says, well, it was a 3-on-2. And I said, well, that's your first mistake. I said, that it was a 3-on-3. He goes, no, it was a 3-on-2. I said, well, we're not going to debate on the bench. I'll show you on the video after the period. I'm just telling you it was a 3-on-3, and this is what we do on 3-on-3s. And for me, if he makes the good read there, if he reads properly and doesn't execute, that's something you can work on and practice in a heartbeat. If his read is off, it's a much tougher problem to try and find a solution. That's a long-term solution to get him to see the ice better, to see past the play and see what else is coming is a huge component of that as well. But that's where this video and that's where the walkthroughs and that's where the Defense University can really come in handy. The mental side, I'm not going to talk too much about the raw discipline or the consistency or dealing with adversity, all real important mental attributes of an athlete. I think I touch on those a little bit on how I'm coaching and teaching my guys and trying to get them better. But it is worth digging into. If you ask any athlete how much is mental, at least 50% is. And I don't know if we put enough emphasis on it, but I did want to touch on it a little bit. I have some video here. So I've broken it down. I have some D-zone and I have some rush coverage, 2 of the main issues for young defensemen. And I'll go through some of these. Initially, so this is Zach going back, and this is all Zach Werenski. It's good and bad, and I'm missing a lot of his great plays. This was mainly from the near the end of the year. But all through the year, this was an issue for us dealing with rim pucks. So we go back for one here, off his stick right to the slot. Great stick by Jones to deny anything, but we're on the runaround. We're chasing, and we're scrambling, something we'd obviously like to stay away from. Here's one. So this is his next solution, is to use his foot. Pretty similar result. And this is something we worked on a lot in practice, and this is obvious why. This can take a long time to really start showing up in games. Great play by the Washington forward, but we've got 5 guys back. And a couple tough plays on rims, but this is what he's fantastic at. His feet find solutions. His feet make him a threat to skate the puck every time, so the forecheckers have to honor that, so now his puck movement has more effect. Skates, simple, 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 and before you know it, we're first touch behind their goal line. We really try and get our players to use the net well. This is a face-off win. It's a short route. Zuccarello runs a great route. Reed, not much of a hold-up. But because he's had to get it off the boards, he hasn't really had the chance to shoulder check. So if this is a dump puck from the blue line, he's going to have much better awareness. He's going to have better info. So he's got minimal info here. Doesn't matter. At this point, he should be cutting Zuccarello off at the far post. That's fine to invite him in, but his body has to run that guy out of room. The physics of it, the route that Z is on, it's his name, compared to Zuccarello, allow him to cut him off. There's no way Zuccarello can maintain the same pace that Z can as he rounds that net. Stays with it. Real good play by Savard. Doesn't touch the puck too soon, allows that forecheck to come, gets it here and makes a play. This would be on the highlight reel. And because we've stretched the zone, we get into the offensive zone as well. This is the end of a 4-on-4. This is tired legs. You can see everybody's playing a little straight-legged, but his feet find solutions again. Maybe not as good a pursuit by Kuznetsov, but much better job of using the far post. So there's not much chance of Kuznetsov getting in there. I let this one run just because I love watching him play. Gets a shot on net. So here's the other one. So this is now, Parise's not taking the bait, and part of what we want to get invite here is we want to invite Zach Parise on the strong side of the net, knowing full well that, again, at that far post, I get to cut him off. Now I'm in the middle of the ice with the puck, with a forechecker behind me. Now there's only 4 guys left. If I'm smart with my puck movement or my skating, I beat the next guy. Now we've got a chance for something odd man. And because he doesn't bait him in, Parise then takes what I call a reverse flush route. We're a little unaware, so he's got bad info again. Now he's got Charlie Coyle on the hunt. And the one thing that I tried to tell to Zach as early as possible is, listen, you're going to be running our power play. You're such an important part. You're young. They've got you circled on the other team's locker room. Your number 8 has a red or whatever color circle. Finish your check on this guy. And he gets hit hard. And every time he gets hit hard, there's a chance for injury. I want this guy to play 22 years. I want him to be playing in his 40s and still enjoying it and still have the same passion. When you take hits like this, it decreases the chance of that exponentially. And the context of this game, this is when we had won 15 in a row playing Minnesota. I think they had 12 in a row. This was like the first playoff game I've ever been around at the end of January. This was New Year's Eve. So this is a game with a lot of physicality. He gets thrown out of the way, and this is how you win the Vezina Trophy. He makes the save on this one, and we all still look like good coaches. Much better job here. So different camera angle and tougher to see, but he baits Nordstrom in long enough that this route now gives him an invitation to bounce out. So we call this a bounce out or a stop and back. This is unbelievable execution for a young guy. Finds his partner, keeps his feet moving, little redirect, and what was a real good forecheck for Carolina ends up with us hunting the puck down again in their zone. One of the tougher things for young defensemen is to go back on tough pucks. And this is an impossible one. This thing's flat against the boards. I'm not sure there's even a play here besides eating it. One of the toughest challenges then is how do you get body position? Because as you're holding the puck, you've lost body position if anything happens to the puck the wrong way. Sure enough, it happens here. So at some point, we'll invite the other player onto this puck. Go ahead and have first touch on this. You can't do anything with it anyway. We'll give you a shot in the back, try and free it up, and try and skate away, and there's a good clip of that coming up. This one doesn't work out so well, but a great save, real good effort and desperation net front. Count numbers. So as you go back under pressure, count numbers. There's only 5 of the opposition there. We can all count to 5. So the guy on our back, if I know I'm getting pushed by a guy and I see another guy in my field of vision, puck needs to get advanced. And not many forechecks are going to have a guy sitting on a wall. And even if you're moving it to a guy on the wall, the confrontation is higher in the zone. And most goalies do not want confrontations behind the goal line. If they can, they want it higher in the zone. And if you watch Pierre do the goaltending, when it starts getting lower in the zone is when they have to start making those tough decisions. What technique am I using? When it's out and they're standing and they're playing on their feet, like Pierre said, they're much more comfortable. And so as much as we can, we try and advance the puck. This would be a perfect one. We end up getting bogged down. And I look at the clock. I'm going to go over here, and I apologize. But here's one where he sets up, sees the forechecker on his back, allows the goalie the chance to stop the puck. Knows there's one on his back, a second one coming from the middle of the ice, and a third one holding ice. Just a simple kiss off the glass, and away we go. And this doesn't generate much, but when we can get full possession in the offensive zone, that's a win for us. We've created the next advantage. We have an advantage now, and it's only because we've kept it simple and played within ourselves and made good reads. Couple out of coverage here. Great physicality by Jones. good support. And we've got two options here. We can go strong side. His read here is to get his feet moving and go weak side. And then he holds it long enough to bait Trocheck to really create the advantage. So we're going to get out of our zone here. Because he skates and he's a threat to skate with it, one more pass, and the timing of the pass then gets the 3-on-2. Not much out of it again. Same game, same corner, same 5 guys. He keeps it strong side here, knows there's a guy on his back. He has no chance to go weak side. Has the skills to bait him in and then find the triangle between his stick and his feet. Fantastic hockey play. And again, we're skating, full possession. Little dump, first touch behind the goal line. And this is what we talk about. We're always trying to deny the back of the net. So Z's route here is perfect. Emphasizing, pushing Simmons back up the wall. He's going in on a real strong guy. 2 hands. And I saw Jim Peck. I haven't seen Jim Peck in a long time. One of his first questions, 2 hands or 1 hand, coach? I said, depends on the situation. I've gotten away from hard and fast rules, and I've gotten to the point where what might be good for, on our team, say Jack Johnson, isn't going to work for Markus Nutivaara. Totally different strength levels. So Jack Johnson can go in on 2 hands and pin a guy. Markus Nutivaara can't. He's $165 soaking wet. Great skater, great skills, great passer, totally different player. I can't ask him to play the same way. So I can't give him the same set of rules. They're different rules. And I try not to be flexible in what we hold hard and fast to how we're going to play the game as a team, but how each guy finds solutions on the ice is sometimes totally different. Here's Zach, good 2-hand shot in the back. And again, this is a vital time in the game. So it's a 0-0, 30 seconds left, and you can see how everybody's diving in the bench, that we all have tired legs. Ready to skate, simple play, and he gets it up the ice. Rush coverage is another one where young D shows some of their largest growth. So Jonesy turns it over here right in the wheelhouse for Chicago. They're one of the greatest transition teams between the blue line, top of the circle, so we fall into the trap. A lot of times on an odd man situation, all the defenseman is doing is buying time for the other guys to recover. Jonesy realized he messed up. He's going hell-bent for leather to get back, to help out, to make this a 2-on-2, and he's going to get there. If we just hold our ice and stay patient and make a better read, this puck never gets through, and we don't have to find a different solution. And we really advocate a slide there on a 2-on-1 anyway. We advocate Jones leaving his feet much harder, make the guy make an aerial pass. If they're going to go through you, it's going in the air. So there's a better chance that it's bouncing, or that guy's got to make more of a hockey play to corral it before he can start creating the next offensive play. This is one where I'm not sure what you do. This is one I get on the bench and it's Jonesy. Should you jam him? Maybe. This is Michael Grabner. And this seems fast here. When he went screaming by the bench, I realized how fast he was going. But this is Zia's the weak side guy. And he just can't get there. And Werenski's a fantastic skater. This goes far side high, and we get the line up at center again. Body position. So puck's important. In this situation, the body position, we always want to work from the good ice out. He dives in. Real good route by Jonesy, probably a penalty by Florida knocking the stick out of his hands. So here's an improvement. This is game 2. We've sort of sold the farm up ice, 3-on-1 against. We're down 1-0 already, down 3-1. Don't want to go back down 0-2. Great job. And again, I would advocate a slide here. He gets away with a 1 knee down. But in the context of limiting the quality of their chance, awesome job. Buys time. It's now a 3-on-3, 3-on-4. No danger. We've asked him to play physical. So we want the forward to track as far as we can. Doesn't work out here. Great physicality. And I wish I had a pointer here because the 1-hand, 2-hand argument really gets illuminated here. So he's 2 hands. At a certain point, he should be right here on the forehand of the passing forward stick. He should be denying this pass with a good stick on puck. And he stays here as a lefty with no solution. We have 5 guys back, and we still give a shot from a scoring area, and that really goes on his shoulders. And this would be one that I would show him this clip. And he would look at it and tell me what he thought of it. And if he didn't see this stick on puck, then we'd talk about it. And it might be something we do a drill that day or the next couple days to really hammer home the point. Real good physicality here. Stings him. And this is against Boston's top line. And this was a luxury we had. We could play him as an 18, 19-year-old kid against the other team's best players. So you can watch Pastrnak now limp his way back to the bench, or you can watch Z keep playing and finding solutions with his feet. Finds his partner, tough puck, stays available, good look, gets to the weak side, get the puck out. Another good physicality, just a simple advancement, and away we go 3-on-2. And he's just a good player. I didn't know what to put these in. This is a change situation. I'm not sure of the game, but there was one game that we beat Montreal 10-0 at home, and I'd never been a part of that. I'd never been a part of a 16-game winning streak. We did that this year. It was about a season of firsts. But he can't get the change. And what an unbelievable job to come up and regain some ice, get some momentum back on tired legs. He's out there with our other rookie right now. Great body position, great stick to deny anything to the net. They make a mistake, we pounce on it and get the change. 3-on-2 read here. So this is all great stuff. This is stuff you love to see through the season and now starts to show up in the playoff games. But this is a 3-on-2. What they've done is they've bought time, they've slowed the rush down so that the 2 forecheckers get to a point where it's a 3-on-4, gives him the chance to deny the net front. Just an awesome job body position-wise. Timing and the knack of the game. How do you create the next advantage? Just a little subtlety here, holds the puck a little longer, buys time for the next guy to get it. Now we're creating offense at the other end. This is one, I love this clip, and at the start of the year, Torts told our D, I don't care if we give anything up. I want you guys up the ice. I wish I kept this clip running longer. But 2 good skating defensemen, they move it. They both jump by F1. Jonesy kicks it out, drives the net. Z drives the net down the middle. This puck continues around the boards. We have 2 forwards playing D. And so, again, you don't see it very often, but the way the game is going, if you don't incorporate your defensemen in your offense, you're not going to create much offensively on the rush because the teams come back so hard with numbers, and it's something we felt it was worth the stuff in the other end. This is just a great clip of the D on a forecheck. So great effort by the forwards to check. Good job by the D again to keep it in. Good reload again by our forwards. Feet moving the whole time. Feet moving. And that guy can score goals. Great shot by Cam Atkinson. And this is just good skills. Just a fantastic player. The sense to get it back for the one-timer. I'm not sure Fleury even sees it. Hits him in the shoulder. That's kind of the way the series went for us. I'd like to thank you. I'd like you to remember, and Jim touched on it, our influence on our players is never neutral. It's either positive or negative. Make sure we're doing more positive with our players. Make sure we're not just developing them as athletes, but as young men and young women. And I'd like to thank you for your time.